Hello and welcome to the latest from the Terrace Scottish Football Podcast. My name is Joel Skett, and to help me go over Saturday's games from the Scottish Premiership on this Sunday morning is Tony Anderson. How's it going, Tony?
Oh, I'm good, mate. I'm very well, thank you. Up bright and early.
Yes.
To do this, then off to Easter Road, as people can imagine, for the Hibs Celtic game. What about you? How are you doing? More at the point.
I'm good. I was involved in a minor road accident yesterday.
Oh no! Okay.
Yeah, anyone that maybe Hearts fans are going to, we're going to Motherwell might see me standing on the side of the M8, looking like a spare prick. It's like I just don't know what to do. It was.
Suppose you're working as well. You're not just actually going to the game. You're actually at work.
Anyone who knows M8, well, anyone who drives M8 recently will know it's got roadworks halfway along between Edinburgh and Glasgow, and basically when they went into one of the lanes goes into hard shoulder, one goes on the left hand lane, someone cut across one and then they had to slam on the brakes, someone went into the back of them. I thought the car in front of me obviously slammed on their brakes. I had got my brakes down in time and didn't go into the back of it for a split second. It's like, yes, got away with this. And then the three cars behind me went into each other, and then it went into me. I was like, shit. So we were stood on the side of the M8 for, I don't know, like 45 minutes. And it was one of those where, like, I've never been in a collision before. So I was just standing around, like, I don't really know what to do. So thankfully everyone else dealt with it. Well, I would just try to keep on.
Insurance is through the roof. Like, no, everyone, you have to phone me. You have to sort it.
Thankfully, my car is, it looks, on the outside anyway, it looks absolutely fine considering. I was surprised considering I was quite a big dunt. So, that was a...
Did you get a wee fright, Joe? Or were you knowing that you were going to be all right? Was it all slowed down, or was it still pretty sketchy?
No, it was like it was more of a, oh, you fucker. One where I was drinking a can of juice, and the worst that happened to me was I got a wee bit wet from the can of juice. So
I bruised on your chin. Yeah.
So, it was... everyone was okay in the end, I think. So, and I managed to get to the game. Whether that was good or bad, I let everyone else decide that.
So last week you flew an extra 200 miles to get to Aberdeen from America, and this time you're in a car accident.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, anything to see the Hearts. Fair play to you. Fair play to you.
Hopefully, we're at home next week, so hopefully it's just, or on Wednesday, hopefully it's just a case of me just being able to drive sensibly to Tynecastle and then watch us struggle against Kilmarnock.
Yeah.
We are here to discuss 3 games from the Scottish Premiership, one of which was Hearts, so we'll leave that to the end. And we will start with Dundee's 3-1 win over St Mirren. Tony, this was a surprise, but on reflection on watching the game, was it surprised St Mirren looked like they really struggled?
Yeah, they did. I think we need to go back to start with Dundee's lineup. He made quite a lot of changes from the Hibs game. Firstly, he changed the shape and he went to 4 at the back, where he used sort of Astley and Dre Wright as an actual left back and right back, and then sort of Congreve and Yogan further forward. Then he had Wesley moved into midfield with Danda and Hamilton. I'll come to everyone else, but Wesley was obviously a bit of a left field choice going into midfield. And then at full time, Steven Pressley lets us know that this is a premonition that came to him in a dream, and that's after Joe Wesley played so well in training. He dreamt. I don't know. He doesn't really explain this dream, does he? does he put Wesley in midfield in the dream and he scores a peach like he did, or does he just have a dream where it's just the most boring dream of all time, where he just stands there and goes, "I'm going to pick Wesley at the midfield"?
Do you think it was a dream, or was it just his missus has been watching Dundee thinking he can't play a back 5 again? So she's like whispering in her ear. It's like the episode from Friends where Chandler's listening to the tape and Joy finds out and starts saying, "Oh, you need to make Joy lots of sandwiches." That's just her play a back 4 against St Mirren.
The Christmas time, the ghost of Ebenezer Scrooge coming in, the ghost of Dundee past, showing them under Tony Docherty scoring tons of goals. than the Ghost of Dundee future showing Steven Pressley in the dole queue. And the president's like that. It was it's a weird thing to say. It's like, you know how normally when loads of defeats are coming in, you try and remove the spotlight from the players onto you.
Mm-hmm.
This is like the polar opposite. You finally got a win. You scored 3 goals. You won by 2 good goals. During the game, you were getting told to get the fuck, even after Dundee scored a goal. And then this is the point where you think, I'm not just going to make it sort of about me. I'm also going to make it really weird and make it sound like I didn't actually make the decision. It was all a bit of a luck. Just a really bizarre avenue to go down.
It's the last thing that Dundee fans probably wanted to hear from Pressley, and the fact that they not only have they won a game and he can talk about the fact they kind of coming from behind and the difficult situation, but it's the fact that it wasn't like this wasn't like a week's worth of training where they're building up to. This is a manager just decided on a whim, on a dream to change it. So that's what kind of Dundee's season is like. Looks like it's hanging on. Is it Steven Pressley's dreams from now on, where to go one way or another? It's
just such a weird way to sort of deliver this. Is because he says in the discussion about his dream, he does say that during training, Wesley was really good this week, working hard and looked brilliant.
Well, play him.
Yeah, so like just say that. Like that all makes sense. That's like, oh great, right? So that means we're working hard in training. Yeah, there's a bit of belief that comes about it. And he just adds this mad curveball. It's weird because it's only Presley comes across as like some sort of like wacky personality. He just a wee bit like weird. I don't know, he never thought of him that way. He just always thought of him as just like a bit of a bore.
He is so far removed from like the chest beating, like no nonsense Scottish football centre back.
Yeah, so it's really hard to believe. Maybe it's like maybe it's like an Inception thing that a raging Dundee fan managed to break into his dreams and force him to do to do all that.
I mean, if a raging Dundee fan, they would have told him to just resign.
Yeah.
In terms of, so just like we'll go back to the start, because like kind of I started off on the wrong foot there with St Mirren and how poor they were, but St Mirren took the lead and they were aided by Clark Robertson. It brought him immediate boos. Looking at so I wasn't really following the scores, but I was following the Terrace group chat yesterday during the Hearts game, and yourself, Gary and June were watching it, and it was to my surprise that like Dundee weren't getting beat 3 or 4-0, considering the negativity that was being said about Dundee.
The start of the game, Dundee they just kept on giving the ball away. It's sort of like, as I said this last week about when I watched Dundee against Hibs, is that I could see that he was trying not to just camp, and he was trying to have some sort of ability to go forward. And when they ultimately committed bodies against Hibs last week, they started to create chances, but it was too little too late. And they were doing this today. Again, it wasn't this sort of like death ball, the murder ball that we've been watching with Prezi, where it's like, you've got no faith in the team whatsoever. Even though really when I watch with Congreve, Danda, Yoggin, Murray, and even Hamilton, who I'll come on to talk a little bit about later, I was like, that's decent in terms of the front players and in terms of the bottom 6 of the Scottish Premiership. If you give them enough to go on, you'll probably create some chances and get some goals. So again, they were trying to do it. Dre Wright and Yoggin were hooking up down the left, but yeah, the first sort of 20 minutes, they were trying to do it, but then I was getting that worry that everything I just said was just complete bollocks, and I was like, maybe they are just utterly shit, and maybe Presley was right all along, and there's no way of doing that. But yeah, Clark Robertson just inexplicably,
egregious.
Yeah, just
that's one where you can fans can shout about the manager and telling him to get up the road, but you just can't legislate for that. What are you doing?
Passing it directly to him. It looks like there was a few of these where it just like you can't really work out what the plan is, even if you remove Mandron from the equation. But it's straight to him, and Mandron doesn't fanny around, just takes one touch and drills it into the bottom corner. And McCracken, I saw him get a bit of heat online. He's a bit flat-footed, wrong-footed.
Flat-footed, yeah.
But that kind of happens when something like that. So he's obviously not really prepared for the shot to come in, because the last time he looked up, Clark Robertson had just received the ball and was just wandering forward. So I would go on the line of good finish. But then, unfortunately for Dundee, St Mirren just sort of run up the park and score instantly. If we move a tiny bit, St Mirren, we can go back and forward, of course.
Yeah.
McMenamin was back playing centre midfield like he had against Celtic, which I thought worked really well in terms of balance. McMenamin was so nearly there in terms of scoring or creating chances against Celtic, and he was very similar in this game, is that he was given a bit of a free roll. So it worked really well because he's able to go over the left-hand side because he's quite comfortable out there, where he can support John driving forward the ball, giving him an option. The same on the other side with Richardson. And he links pretty well with Lindelöf. Because Lindelöf is really good at taking the ball into his feet. He's strong, and he really helps St Mirren build up the park. But McMenamin slots in that bit as like a wee bit of quality, a wee bit of guy who actually wants to get on the ball. And I think that works really well when they get into the last third. The main issue with McMenamin is probably what we've all seen most of his career. He's just a nearly man. It all looks good, and it just never ever seems to really quite fall into creating that chance. And against Celtic, that one where it hit his studs, when he was sliding in to score pretty early in the game, I think that just tells you everything you need to know about McMenamin. It's all so close to being like a really key player, a guy who probably gets involved in 7 goals and 6 assists over a season, really good in that area of the pitch, but it doesn't quite. But I do think it brings a bit of balance to St Mirren. And if I'll stick with them, it's Bacchus was hopeless.
He was. Every time I've seen him recently, he has been miles off it. There was even the St Mirren game. Hearts played St Mirren a couple of weeks ago during midweek, and there was a St Mirren fan who, even after like 20 minutes, was shouting at Robinson to get him off, because he was just like, everything was like slow and laboured. He reminded me of someone who has come to Scotland and underestimated the intensity and the tempo. I was like, you've played in Scotland before, you know what's required. You've been relatively successful in Scotland before. You know what's required to perform well and not look out your depth. But he just looks so poor.
Expand on that. Completion was like down. I think there was a point where it was below 50%. And I'm sorry, in centre midfield, that is just like, that's unacceptable.
Yeah.
You can't build up a game like that.
Yeah, you can get away with having that as like if you're a number 10. For example, if you're like a Jan Dand and you're just trying to play, or Scott Allen, you're trying to play through balls and trying to create in the final third. But in like his role in there, it's like to keep the ball, especially with, and I think this comes back to an issue that maybe is the next evolution of if St Mirren are to evolve, is they don't want to have the majority share of possession. And yesterday they had over 60%. St Mirren are not. I don't think they're suited or used to or look to know how to build when they've got so much of the ball.
Yeah, it was when you heard the St Mirren commentators, they were like, "Oh, what is it?" Like they hit the bar late in the game, and they are like, "That's the story of a day." And I was like, I can see how you think that. You had a lot of the ball, you had quite a lot of territory. You had, again, like when I was talking about McMenamin, you had a few nearly moments where you're getting to the byline and stuff, but I was like, there wasn't really clear chances that you were creating. The goal you scored was quite literally handed to you.
Yeah.
As well. So I was like, I don't know if I bought that.
McCracken didn't have a lot to do.
Nah.
Beyond picking the ball out of his net and watching the ball thunder off the crossbar. And
that's playing a, like, right as we're speaking, like a really, really, really poor Dundee team. So I would be a bit worried if I was sitting in. I said they got back into the game there. But again, it was like Gogic. I'm sorry, they take the ball forward and they hit the shot and it gets cannoned in by Gogic. But Danda sort of hits the shot. They move it quite well. This is maybe the bit I wanted to come on and talk about Hamilton, who I thought is quite handy. It's not someone that I can say I've really noticed. And other times I've watched Dundee, I'm not entirely sure how often he has played, but He brings a lot of tempo. He's not scared to ball carry. He drives at teams, and I thought he was really, really good. But with Gogic, he sticks the leg out. It goes cannons past the goalkeeper, and that's a bit of luck you need. And this is what brings me back to Dundee. It's having a player like Hamilton who's willing to ball carry, drive at teams, that makes something happen. Having a player like Danda, he's a bit of a fair weather player. We all know that he just brings, he's got certain qualities and other things that he completely lacks. But Dundee can have that. They don't have enough going on to not maybe carry a player who has a bit of quality and has a set piece, who maybe carries a few weapons, and letting him be around the box allows that. Murray being deep into the box as well, that makes Gogic make a decision. So the goal just comes from quite simply having people forward. And having people committing. And what happens when you do that is you force the other team into a bit of desperation. And that's what happens with Gogic. He puts his leg out and it cannons into net. And then Dundee start, as you can imagine, they get a bit of confidence. St Mirren start struggling a bit. And Dundee start moving the ball with a bit of tempo. And then, like I mentioned earlier, Yogain and Wright were really getting into the game together. I felt quite a lot was going down that side with them. And they were, and Richardson, who isn't the world's best defender, he was struggling a bit with that. And then again, then Dre Wright works round, he gets the ball forward, Yogain holds up to it, Dre Wright goes back round the back of him again and picks up the ball, and he round the box, and there's bodies in the box again, and he hits the shot, and it's a decent effort. George makes a hash of it. And you're talking about Bacchus having a bad time. I mean, you're the goalkeeper, Joe. I think George, recent weeks, has looked a bit shaky.
He's always had that, even going back to St Mirren, when he was at Livingston, I quite liked him. And there's a lot going for him as a goalkeeper. I think he's really agile. He can come up with some, he's capable of making match-winning, incredible saves. Really good on the ball as well. I think he's got a good, a decent range of passing, especially quite... when he kicks long, there's direction to it rather than just kind of hit and hope. But yeah, that was one where it looks like he's just gone through his hands. It's always one where with a goalkeeper, it's like if you get across there and it's not like just that you got a hand to it, you got both hands to it, which was probably the most frustrating bit. And it's almost like it looked like he tried to catch it rather than just kind of push it away with two flat palms. But yeah, it's one where as a goalkeeper it's one where if you do that dive and it goes in the top corner, it's like, right, well, there's very little I could have done about that. Whereas if you get your two hands to it, you will be feeling like I could have done better. 5 minutes before that, in terms of sticking on St Mirren, just for now, how big a miss was, or how big an impact was Scott Tanser coming on for Declan John? Yeah,
John went off after about half an hour. Yeah, and Tanser came on. John's better than Tanser. I think he's more athletic than Tanser. Tanser's a player who... Tanser's the kind of player that, if you see him in parts, you think he's really good. He's got a really nice left foot. It's like if you've got pals who watch a bit of Scottish football, you're the kind of guy that they might watch a game and they think Tanser's good because he's got a bit of quality. But then, when you talk to them about it, you're like, by the way, he barely ever plays. And it's because
he strikes me as he strikes me as now he is moved into, rather than being a wing back, he's a left-sided centre back. Does that feels like that's his transition now, and he don't get what he used to maybe get from Scott Tanser when he was at St Johnstone or his first couple of seasons at St Mirren, where he was that kind of real attacking threat down the left-hand side. And I think you talked about John being athletic. I think John is just looks like a wing back, whereas Tanser now is either a left back or a left-sided centre back in a three.
And John drives inside as well. And like I said, he links up with McMenamin quite well. And you're not sure if he's going to go on the outside or the inside, Johnny. And they use him a lot. John's a player who gets on the ball quite a lot for St Mirren. He looks like quite a key player to the shape. So with Tanser did get to the byline a few times in the second half in general. But again, it's because Dundee were mainly sitting back, looking to counter-attack. But he was quite wasteful, which is, again, really frustrating because, as I said, once you put Tanser on, the one thing you're thinking is, well, if we get on top, we've got a bit of quality that'll go into the box. But that never quite came to fruition from him or Richardson. I said Richardson done one when he got to the byline as well. The cutback was poor, and it was a really, really good chance. And that was, again, they were the best sort of situations that St Mirren got to in Dundee. I think you have to give them credit there in the second half. They did just sit in, which is fine, but they counter-attacked a few times with Congreve, Eugene, Hamilton. It's like and Wesley. Like, Wesley's quite athletic as well. They've got the drive in there. They can do the counter-attack. It would work. It makes sense when you look at these players on the park, and then when you add Simon Murray. But before we moved on to the next game, I was going to say that. It's just like, Murray, I've defended a lot, and I understand his frustration. He due to the way that the style of play that Dundee have had this season, he made one like really big tackle where you could see he was angry. You know, like, Murray doesn't hide his emotions whatsoever. But then he had one brilliant chance again with Hamilton, like, driving through the middle and a really good counter, and he gets it through to him, but it's a poor touch, and he doesn't take it in, and it's like ends up being a really, really poor shot. And just that's the second game in a row I've watched Murray where I have to take away the sort of idea that Dundee weren't taking part in a forward sense at all, and no players were getting round them. I think that would be a lie to say that just to defend them. And I think you just have to go in. It was poor, two really poor performances from Murray. And now we're moving into the next section of Simon Murray's season where maybe like we have to start questioning his performances rather than sort of his manager's or his team's performance in terms of not getting the best out of him.
It's one of those, like, I'd like to see this. You look at that lineup and you think it's a lot more. You'd like to see that from Dundee for a few weeks and see if it does reinvigorate Simon Murray when you have got you've got Dandin there and you've got a lot of, whether it's just youthful energy with Congreve, Yogain and
Hamilton,
Astley, and then Hamilton's having his drive from midfield. So there are shoots there to work with, and I suppose this leads on to the final question for each team is that Dundee can take a lot of confidence from that, can't they?
Definitely, and like especially the third goal to wrap it up when you're under the cosh and go forward and score. And like I said, the other two goals were sort of like, I wouldn't say lucky, but you know what I mean. They're goals you score because you commit men, like I said earlier. And the second goal is a bit of a goalkeeping error, even though it is a good strike. But the third goal's got a bit of quality about it. If I'm a fan, I'm a bit excited about the last goal. Like Wesley, they move it forward, they beat counter attack, and it's an absolute delicious finish. And it's from a player that they've moved into a specific, whether it was a dream or not, whatever. And it's a player that they've put into a specific position, and it's worked well, and he's showed his quality when he's in there. If I'm a Dundee fan, there's no excuse for Pressley to go back to the sort of like murder where it's like we don't have anything. We can't possibly commit any men, and we have to go 10 men behind the ball. There's no excuse. There's no reason to do it. The team it's a bottom six team and it has a blend that can be used despite the fact, it's not perfect, and there'll be games that'll get run over the top of. But
they were the most pathetic. They put in the most pathetic performance at Tynecastle I've seen this season, and like see if Prez under like enough. Prez under so much pressure from the Dundee fans that you think you're just like, you know what? Okay, let's just see if it's not gonna go well, at least go down swinging rather than just going away teams and sitting off them and just like waiting to get beat. It was kind of like, this Dundee can maybe really kick on and see who they're playing on Wednesday and maybe see what they're like. They're away to Celtic on Wednesday, so that'll be reverting back to the 5-4-1.
Yeah, but hopefully, like as I said, the couple of weeks, Prezzi's got to keep going with this, and because they'll get chances. And like I said, games in the Scottish Premiership, it's so tight that you get it up with the green and you win. Like, you know, it happens all the time where it's like based on a decision or like a mistake or whatever. So there's just no reason to ever just completely like hand yourself over and be uncommittal whatsoever as a team. So there's no reason for them to do that. So I'll be quite interested to see how that team develops, because there's bits of it, like after watching them twice in a row there, that I quite like. St Mirren, on the other hand, like they've managed to just slowly but surely get themselves in. They're in bother.
I was going to ask. They've Dundee have risen to 9th. St Mirren are dropped to 11th. Stephen Robinson mentioned that they are in a relegation battle. Or they could be in a relegation battle. Was that the case?
No, there's no way. It's like they've had loads of, like we're talking about the rub of the green. While like St Mirren fans need to understand that whilst it's frustrating having decisions against you, it doesn't mean because they're all in a concentrated period of time that none of them are correct, which seems to be sort of the way that they're feeling at the moment. St Mirren fans, I think, have got in that mode where they're feeling really, really sorry for themselves, and you've got to hope that the team isn't quite the same. But there's far too much quality. They've got far too good a manager, and the performances are good. It's not like you're watching. Yesterday was as poor as I've seen them. Even when I watched them get beat 3-0 of Hibs, they were sort of in that game, and Hibs I sort of took over, and towards the last 20 minutes sort of steamrolled them. But like this was the one where it looked like Dundee sort of knew how to sort of, like they played them a bit, like they caught them off guard, and even though they got a goal ahead at a team that's like bereft of confidence, and they've still been pegged back, that would worry me. But I still think when the team's just too good, that they won't be in bother. The worm will turn, and they'll get a few good results under them. And once they get that League Cup out the way as well, that might help as well, because I feel like sometimes that, especially for a quote unquote smaller club, who aren't normally in that position, like the minds might be wandering towards it and worry about it, and it might affect performance slightly. And I still really wouldn't be shocked if St Mirren went on and won that whatsoever. So it could still turn out to be like the best season in the last sort of 15 since they beat Hearts in that final all those years back.
West of that, Tony, we'll move on to teams who are not having the best of seasons, and that is Kilmarnock against Dundee United. Kilmarnock took the lead through Bruce Anderson from the rebound of a controversial penalty, and then Craig Sibbald equalised in the second half. Another one, Tony, that was you watched, it was on Premier Sports yesterday evening. Who will have been happier with this point? Neither?
It's really, really hard, because it's like I could see someone telling me why neither would be happy, both would be happy, because it's both stopping like poor sort of like we're running defeats for both sides. Dundee United still don't have an away, like a win outside of Dundee this season. I know they won at Dens, but that's barely going away from home, is it? And then
so United have won 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. They've won 1 out of the last 8 now, and Kilmarnock have picked up their first win.
No, so they drew
since the start of October when they beat St Mirren.
And they still haven't won because Kilmarnock drew.
So, sorry, sorry, they stopped their losing run, I should say.
Like there was periods of the game, the game shifted, the game state, as they say, shifted regularly, where you're sitting there and going like, I kept on thinking Dundee United were going to win because they just simply have a better team. Like that's like the feeling. But to be fair to Kilmarnock, they kept on sort of flipping that script and never allowing it that Dundee United were getting sort of non-stop pressure on them. But just when the teams came out, and I know, and as I said, I know that Kilmarnock have injuries, but it's still like, I was like, well, that's an uninspiring football team. Like Brown and Thompson as your wing backs. Like Thompson's got a cross, and that's really about it. Brown's sort of like a really basic player, I mean, I'm not saying he's going to let you down, but he's not getting bums off seats, is he? And in the right wing back role. Then Watson and Lyons is an interesting player, because I used to think he was an absolute Ionosaurus, but there's sort of times when I'm watching Lyons now where he's good, and obviously he takes the armband sometimes, and there was periods in this game where he was the one really, like, he was having a captain's role, he was the one taking it to them, he was putting in some really, really good balls, so exciting. And then, like, it's, if you're a Kilmarnock fan, having to go back to Watkins. I think Watkins has been a good signing for Kilmarnock, but you're obviously thinking when you sign 2 strikers in this in the summer, and you've got Bruce Anderson in there, and like I said, with Tiffany as sort of like an extra wide player, and Kiltie's in there, you think you're moving on from sort of that, and they keep on having to go back. So it's uninspiring. But to be fair to them, they stood up. and they were counted. And they, as I said, they had periods in the game where I thought they started pretty well. They were really pressing the front foot, and they were playing some really nice sort of one-touch football around the box. But then when it swung to Dundee United, Kilmarnock stopped pressing a bit. It's some of a lot of teams that we see when they don't have a lot of confidence. I think we see it a lot. I'm trying to think of a team that Aberdeen do a lot when they're struggling. They start well, first 5 or 6 minutes. They look like they've had a bit of a rocket and they're trying to make something happen. And then the minute there's any sort of tiny bit of resilience is asked for, they sort of like revert back into their shell. And I thought Kilmarnock had done that at the start. And then Kersteres wins the penalty. He drives pretty well into the box. I think he does the nice little bit of skill where he does a little back heel. Well, it's almost like a forward. It's like a side part of his foot forward where he jumps over the ball that buys it a bit of space. And then he puts on the afterburners a bit and he tempts in the tackle. And it's a penalty. It's a penalty. And then again, but I was like, Waters stepped up to take it. I think they were really pleased to see Waters back. I can see why they would want to play Waters and Satsford up front, but we'll come to that maybe a little bit later on. But he obviously wants to play. He's been injured for a while, gets the ball, but Oyuemi, it's a brilliant save, man.
Mm-hmm. It's one where you always think a penalty miss, or if you don't score a penalty, it's a bad take. But it was actually it was one of the better penalties that's missed. If you know what I mean, because of just
hard
how
low,
that's
it's driven.
Yeah,
I mean, it's not right in the corner, obviously, but it's not like it's miles away. It's the kind of penalty that you see go in all the time, and you would never blink an eyelid and blame the striker. But he gets down there, and the fact that he's only able to tip on a post sort of tells you when he gets he's only just able to get a fingertip onto that because of the pace on the ball. So for me, you'll be hard pushed to see a better penalty save this season.
What do you think Kilmarnock's biggest problem is at the moment?
Defensively, and this is.
Sorry, just to cut across you, because it's somewhat of a surprise considering they've still got like Mayo, Lewis Mayo, and Robbie Dees, but I mean wing backs have changed, and the wing backs from when McInnes used to play a back three, the wing backs usually were wingers, like more winger types, and then you've got the solid base of three. So yeah, it's
that's a fair point. Like I mentioned the wing backs right at the top when we were talking about Kilmarnock, and yeah, you're right, because like he's trying to battle that, as you see with the formation. He went more with a 3-4-3 in this one, so he tried to give width, and Tiffany definitely caused Dundee United some problems. Anderson was his usual self with quite a pest. So you imagine when they get guys like Kennedy back who can play in there, that'll bring them a bit more going forward. And obviously Brannan seems to have just completely fallen out of favour a bit, which I'm a bit surprised about. He obviously was absolutely brilliant at the start of the season. And I know he's a young player, and I know you don't just play them to the death, but you barely see him. You don't see him start any games now, which, I mean, someone will probably message me and I'm talking complete shite there, but in my experience when I check over at Kilmarnock, I always feel like he's on the bench, and maybe a bit of, along with Watson, a bit of youthful exuberance, and Brannan like to try things. And I think the team definitely needs that right now. But it just seems since Strayak went out of goals, and this is the problem. It's not, Oyuemi might look handy. I mean, he doesn't look perfect, and he's a young goalkeeper. But with having to play Eddie Beach at other times, it looks like it's killed the sort of usually steady.
Uneasiness.
Yeah, and it spreads. And I've done this whole chat last week with Cairns on the podcast about like, you've got a bad goalie, it just renders everything else pointless. And it just spreads like wildfire, and all the normal feelings that players, shapes and style and individuals within it, they normally feel that's sort of like swiped away from them. And that's simply what's, Kilmarnock should be okay. I mean, they're never going to do anything under Kettlewell, in my opinion. I just think Kettlewell will just always have them sort of mid-table, and Kilmarnock could look higher than that, and they've got a squad when they've not got the injuries that could be more capable than that. But right now it's like they're a little bit hamstrung, essentially.
Yeah, and I do wonder if it's just on the branding point that it's because it's a difficult period, so he's gone for maybe more experience in the kind of the wing back situations. At the same time, Shaw Brown is a 20-year-old centre back, but I suppose it's a different position. So Kilmarnock didn't really kick on after the Anderson goal. It did feel United came back into it.
What did you think about that penalty, Joel? Interested to know, for Kilmarnock's pen.
Watched it a few times this morning, and it is so soft. I think it's one of those where if it's when you hear about things like outside the box, like, oh, that's given outside the box. I don't think that's given. See if they're running side by side and going to the corner. I think the referee waves away, and it's the fact that he's gone to. It's like the issue of like VAR is totally enough. Yeah. It's just so. Just on a wider point, the officiating this season, it feels like it has gone to a different level of bad. There's like been so many egregious mistakes, even with VAR, that it's not helped. And again, it goes back to a wider point of, and my frustration with VAR is that it's never going to be a panacea. All it's done is put more focus on refereeing decisions rather than help any matter. And
then Watkins just completely buys it.
Yeah.
And fair enough, like, well, not really fair enough, you know what I mean, but that's football. Yeah. That's football now, and that's what players do, and especially one as old and as wily as Watkins. So he completely buys it. And then Anderson had another chance just before half time, which they worked really, really well. Like Brown plays an amazing ball out to Tiffany. It's like a drilled, sliced outside the right foot, volleyed pass right out to Tiffany. And Tiffany manages
a type of pass that when he's hit that, he's not even felt the ball. Yeah. It's that smooth.
Oh, it was perfect. I loved it. I want to watch it back right away. And it goes straight at Tiffany, and then he creates, and then Anderson gets a chance. But then the second half comes in, and I'd say large periods of this, I feel like Dundee United were the better team. I thought Kamara sort of took control of the game, and Kamara brings me on to talk about Dundee United. I feel like he epitomises this Dundee United team, because he's very up and down. When he's at his best, he's running the show, and he looks like every bit the type of player that I think all of us talk about all the time, is that you need a player like that in Scotland. Like, you must have it. Someone who can ball carry, someone who's got the long legs, who can make those sort of like big tackles as well, and then they can grab the ball when they're on the ground for that tackle, get up and start driving the heart of the team. They can feel people and turn them and help you get out the pitch and buy you space. And they're just really athletic and good. But obviously with Kamara, I find that a lot of time he makes poor decisions. Sometimes he wants too long on the ball when he's at his worst. I thought he had that game at Tynecastle, the 1-1 game. It was every 5 minutes you saw a different side of Kamara. And it would be like, when he was having the good minutes was when Dundee United took full control of the game at Tiny, and then it never was when Hearts started to break into it. So I feel like he's such a key player, and he's 28 years old, so it's not like he's young, but if you can coach and get a little bit more of an improvement in him, with decision making and times of releasing the ball, and he continues to learn more and more about sort of the speed of the game here, I feel like they'll have won a watch with him, really, and he could really be a huge difference in getting Dundee United like into the top 6 and maybe fighting for Europe.
How old is he, Tony?
20. Oh, please no.
That's really bad, because that's an in-joke.
Yeah. Well, people will think it's the Anthony Emmy thing. It's also the problem here, which makes this even worse.
No, it's very much. You thought he was younger.
I didn't say anything. I just said he was a coach. He said I get me a bit of coaching, he could do better.
Yeah.
That's all. I didn't mention anything to do with these. Don't get me wrong. It was insinuated. And Tony I was found out quickly.
Craig Anderson jumped on you. Craig Anderson was wrong. No, he said he suggested he was 30, but he's 20. But yeah, you can see that I saw
Craig Anderson typing on my phone. I was like, fucked this somewhere.
But no, there's there is, like I said, it's like he's a player, and there is a fair point to ask about about his age. Like, is he too old to fix? If that makes sense. And I don't think that's the case. I think any player can be, as we've seen in Motherwell, will go on to, and anybody with the right direction can really kick on. And he is, like I said, got so many of the tools that can be either a player that United are able to flip, or at the very least build him into a key cog in that centre midfield for seasons to come, where where he's the main man, and it's built around him, and he's
and no one wants to sign him because he's too old. That's the thing, and you just create the best player that you've got for years.
So you mentioned Waters and Sapsford. Waters has been out for a fair bit. How did they two link up? Obviously, Craig Sibbald ended up scoring the equaliser, but how did the front two work?
It's frustrating, and again, it's like a lot of these players that Dundee United have sort of unearthed. It's like they've now got a team of sort of rough diamonds who all need a bit of coaching, but you're like, I can definitely see what you thought about him. I think with Sapsford, he's so mobile, he's quite skillful, and he gets round the pitch, he moves towards the flanks, he always goes looking for the ball, but he gets caught out a lot of the time. Again, he makes poor decisions. His off the ball runs can be pretty bad sometimes, and then with Waters, who's obviously a bit older, I feel like they will work. And if Waters hadn't got injured, I feel like they would already be clicking more if we'd already seen them. But again, it didn't quite work for them over the course of the 90 minutes. But again, just flashes where you're like, yep, that'll do. Waters is really good when he's back to goal. He's a bit more of what looks like an intelligent player at Dundee United, whereas Sapsford sort of seems to be working more off instinct, if you like. But as a combo, I can see that working sort of really, really well eventually. And I'd be quite excited if I was a Dundee United fan, because Waters is quite big as well. He's strong, and then with the mobility, Sapsford, I think is going to be class at some point. Some point he'll go like that. I'll go back to this. I've done this a few weeks, but the one at Tynecastle, he was really, really good at Tynecastle, apart from the fact that he couldn't stay on bloody side. And a lot of the time there was no reason to be offside. It wasn't like those goals that Dundee United created, those like disallowed goals, had to be offside. It was poor runs off the ball. They created the situations against Hearts where they could have scored the goals, and it was poor runs, and the timing was off. But I think when they get there, they two will work. And that's the thing with that Dundee United team. There's just so much to like. And then they had Stevenson playing in the centre midfield there. The goal that Sibbald scored is criminal from a Kilmarnock point of view when you're 1-0 up.
So easy, yeah.
And Kilmarnock nearly score up at the other side of the park. They're so close to scoring. Anderson gets a lovely ball played into him, and he chests it down, and he was just about to get there, and Dundee United just managed to nick the ball away. And then it's from that counter that they create the goal, and it's really easy on the eye if you're a Dundee United fan. But it's criminal from their sense. But you can see where that link up would come. Waters and Sapsford both have a bit of talent about them. They both have a nice touch, so you can do that in around the box where you can either put the ball in. Waters can score goals. Sapsford has pace. He can go in behind, but they both have a decent touch as well, which means you can play like that when you're bouncing it about with a bit of quality in there. And then you've got Ferry, Strain, Stevenson, who all have the ability to put in good deliveries. Stevenson's got a good eye for getting in at the back post as well. And it was actually Sibbald who goes in and sort of tackles it into the net. And Richards, to go back to Dundee United, sorry. He looked better, but he wasn't. Even though maybe he was a wee bit weird for the penalty. I don't know that he saved, but overall he certainly looked better. That one where you see these penalties every now and then where the keeper is dived and is able to get a good kick, even though he's dived, like good purchase on it, and he gets it away. Richards didn't do that, which made it more difficult. But I think you're right about there's been a lot to like about Dundee United. I think they've obviously good ones have been hamstrung to an extent because of injuries, and he's not been able to have a settled 11, and which is difficult when he's brought so many players in, and there's so many new players that you need to kind of have that period where everyone's fit, everyone's settled, and it allows people to
build partnerships across the pitch. That's not really been the case, and it's hopefully if they keep everyone fit, and they've been hamstrung by the fact that they have got the worst goalkeeper in the league.
Yeah, they've got the worst goalkeeper, and on top of that, Jovo Kersta says not good on the ball at all. And when you play a back three, especially Jovo, I mean, fucking hell, man, he's really poor on the ball. He sort of hacks at the ball sometimes. Like when he's under no sort of pressure, it just looks like he wants to defend. But when you play a back three, and like I said, when you've got Strain, Ferry, Kamara, Stevenson, and then I'm doing it Satsford and Waters, you want the ball getting played into their feet. You know, like if you find, so I feel like if they go into the window and maybe try and find and not easy. I know it's very easy for pundits or people like us spraffing on podcast. Very easy to go, just a right centre back who's really, really nice on the ball and drives forward with it. These things are obviously really hard to find in our, like, with these sort of, when you're looking for players in those positions with those specific attributes, because those attributes of those players are like, that's what clubs at the top level look for. It's like I was saying last season, for Hibs, the reason I think it went so well is, yes, Lewis Miller wasn't perfect, but he brought something into that role that other teams don't have. And Triantis playing in that role, in that defensive midfield role, it's players having attributes and roles that other teams don't have. So it puts you up a level. And I think and then when the minute Hibs lose them, they can't really replace it. You have to be they're such hard sort of roles to replace to find these players with specific attributes like that. Because when they do, big teams want them and they're happy to spend money. But if Dundee United are able to find a good ball player like playing that centre half, I think it would make a hell of a lot of difference, because they'd be able to put the pressure on more often and it would be more controlled. And I think ultimately, looking over their team, they've maybe got better players than quite a lot of teams.
They could find that centre-back at Fir Park in Paul McGinn, who was... There's a tenuous link for you, but I was sitting watching...
That doesn't make sense! How's he done
it? I was watching the game yesterday, and we'll move on to the Motherwell. Nil, Hearts 0. And it struck me as Paul McGinn, who's been really, really assured on the ball. He's been really, really good, and I think maybe one player that sums up Motherwell's evolution or revolution is probably him, and how impressed I've been with him as a centre-back. So yeah, we will stick with Motherwell, leave Hearts at the end, just because we have now watched Motherwell against both of our teams in the past week. They're a really good side to watch.
They're good. They're just good in general, I think. Like they've had slow bits. I mean, I've been banging on about Motherwell. Have been my sort of like, I've been cradling them since the start, because I've loved the idea of being able to get a team to do the thing that people say you can't do here. Yeah. As I said, like, and I've loved seeing a manager and a coach who seriously must be going places, man. Like, for him to make this work, and yes, it's not perfect, but to get your point across, your principles and your style, despite, I mean, the three of the back four is Welsh, McGinn and Katrumbis. And Welsh has been really good. And really,
been excellent, yeah.
Really, really impressive. But I wouldn't have been thinking to myself that Welsh is some sort of ball-playing centre-half. And we've had Liam Gordon playing in that role. We've had Stephen O'Donnell playing in a back three, because obviously they've used the back three at times.
Yep.
And Liam Gordon, it doesn't matter who they use in there. A lot of them are, like with Paul McGinn and stuff like you're saying, these are old guys who are Scottish Premiership stalwarts. You probably think you can't teach them to do this. You're asking for you're asking to be made to look a laughing stock, and for them to pull out. Katrumbis isn't particularly brilliant on the ball either. Longello's quite a direct, chaotic player. So again, you wouldn't think it would work, but it's brilliant to watch. They're getting the results, which is what I always thought, is that the worm would turn towards them and they would start getting more results, rather than it being like a flash in the pan and they start losing all the time. And I'm really, even though I wish Hibs were doing better, but it's really good this season. There feels like there's a lot more stories and there's a lot more things to like in the Scottish Premiership, when you've got Falkirk, you've got Motherwell, like even like with Hearts going to the top early, but people using sort of different styles, different shapes. It's not all the same. And the Motherwell are the poster boys for doing something that we just simply didn't think was possible.
It struck me with Askew was they changed to a back three to we'll say accommodate Grant Hanley to an extent, or to accommodate the Hibs to an extent, and So they went with essentially 3-4-3, 3-5-2 during the week, and then yesterday it was 4-2-2-2. Essentially, it was Flanagan and Watt. There was
no
the
width,
two central
really.
midfielders.
No width. It was all like almost like a diamond type of thing.
So Justin Slattery just played off the sides, and they played as like number 10s behind the front two of Maswinisi and Hendry. The two fullbacks were charged with like keeping the width, but in two different shapes. The principles
stayed the same.
Largely stayed the same. And both against Hibs, they were good in that. They were still quite direct when they could be. They were direct, and that's where they got a couple. They got a bit of joy against Hearts. I think the frustrating thing for them was, for all their good play in the first half, they didn't really create the chances that their good play perhaps merited, or they thought they would have gotten to. And then they did, when they did create chances, just had the two best in the second half and passed them up. And it was one where they just didn't do enough to. They didn't create enough good chances. There were good moments, good opportunities, but they kind of just lacked that final bit of kind of cutting edge. And in the end, out of the two teams, I think Motherwell would be the more frustrated that they did win that.
Yeah, and again, that's testament to. I mean, they've played Hearts and Hibs back to back, and they done a number on Hibs, and then played them off the park, and then sort of like held onto the ball to preserve energy for their next game. You mean that was like the most? If you're a Motherwell, it was like the most ideal. He would ask you. They wrote down what the game was going to do, how it was going to play out, and then it played out exactly how he wanted it. And then he goes up against Hearts, and like again, like I would doubt that. From what I've read, I wouldn't say they played Hearts off the park, but they were certainly the stronger team, and they were able to sort of control larger periods of the game. And again, that's against two teams that have spent money, who have big ambitions, and Motherwell are doing it with like sort of like a makeshift. It's just it's
and
really
Hearts treated Motherwell with a lot of respect, because there's the shape, and this is something that Hearts fans have been really frustrated with, and I can understand it, because they're watching a team who's got a. So in the summer, we signed two wingers, we signed a right back, and signed a couple of centre midfielders. But then they look at the lineup. Harry Milne's playing right mid. Ocean McEntee's playing right back.
He's really wedded to this.
Blair Spittle's playing centre midfield. But so how the game worked was, out of possession, certainly in the first half, Milne would track Longelo, and Hearts would essentially go to a back three, and McEntee would often step in and engage Slattery, who was on that side. So then it did. Defensively, it worked, but then you've seen the limitations when it flipped. There was a few moments where it felt like Motherwell were happy to push Hearts down, or not happy. They were. That was one of their aims. Out of possession was to push Hearts down, Hearts right hand side. Yeah, and you've seen it.
So again, that's tactical stuff again that the managers sat down and worked out, and he's impacting the game sort of directly. And that's like, and you're telling me that Hearts had to do little things, and most of the game was more about like containing Motherwell rather than vice versa, which says a lot.
First half was about it. First half was it felt like out of possession that Hearts were wary of Motherwell's threat, and then in possession flipped. In possession, few moments down the right hand side where like McEntee got the ball and it just slowed down, or at one moment he ran the ball out of play when there was like a good crossing opportunity. Harry Milne offers a good threat, like back post threat, but again there was moments where he got the ball and it was Craig that when we were speaking yesterday, Craig Cairns was like, there were just moments where you kind of just wish you had a winger on that side, and you had that kind of explosive pace or the attacking intent. It kind of, Hearts got a foothold and control towards the end of the half, and then for a large period, maybe half an hour of the second half, it was Motherwell pinned back, but you saw a different side to Motherwell there. Hearts didn't create too many chances. Motherwell had and this is what Askew said, that how happy he was that they were able to show the steeliness, defensive side of the game, where
that's the thing that's been questioned the whole season. Yeah,
they could, like, Motherwell couldn't get out the half for a large period of the second half, but at the same time, it never felt like, I said this, I used this metaphor to Craig when we were doing a video yesterday for our standards, was that it was like Hearts had Motherwell on the ground, but rather than like press the foot down on the neck. They just stood and watched him because there was never really Ward.
They were just lying on the ground staring at the stars.
He had nothing to do. Absolutely nothing to do.
But this is something, an argument that I'd had a few times with well, I say argument, just when we're doing the TV or pods or something. I felt like people were over-egging that they made a few errors that led to goals from their passing football out the back. There was a few egregious ones that are probably inevitably going to happen when you play that way all the time. But I was saying, like, most of the goals they lose are when it's like when guys like Gordon and that aren't doing the bread and butter. And like balls are coming at the box and it's like a poor headed clearance. So they're getting under it or they're not marking properly, which has absolutely zero to do with your style of play when you're on the ball or how you want to build up to the. I mean, that's like, again, you're not defending well in the most mundane fashion that all teams have to do. So, yeah, I'm not surprised to hear that he's obviously just chuffed that they were just able to, because they're obviously going to happen. And when you play other teams, you're going to go through periods where you have to suffer a wee bit. But if you defend well, then it doesn't really make you feel. And it also means that you're not desperately holding on. And then means you can have a bit of energy to then, like what I read happened, that Motherwell were able to come back again and have a good end to the game and nearly go on and pick the 3 points.
Yeah, that was. I mean, it was. I mean, don't get me wrong. There was a few moments in the where they took risks in both halves, playing out from the back. They would. It was, see, from a distance, Fadinger, Watt, and Slattery all look very similar. So I can't remember who it was, just because they've all got kind of medium length hair. But they'll try kind of clip passes or a couple of flicks in dangerous areas. But they're quite good at reacting. We see when things don't go well, they're quite good at reacting. Or if they lose the ball, they're quite good at reacting to that. I think they're just you can just see that they're a very well coached, smart side, and not just in possession. You can see it out of possession as well in terms of the way that they kept Hearts at arm's length, and I think they've certainly grown on that side of things. I think that was the big.
Sorry, on you go. On you go.
No, just saying the biggest frustration from Hearts' point of view is that they allowed Motherwell back in the game in the final quarter, the final 15 minutes or so, and the McInnes took a while to make changes. When he did, like, Hearts just didn't, and Kabori should have been brought on well before he did, well before he was, and then when he did come on, just didn't engage with him at all. It just felt like just ran out of steam. And
Braga seems to have fallen a bit. Kizridis as well, even though, but the difference when I watch the bits that I've seen of Hearts is that even when Kizridis is bad, he still looks like he's going to do something, and he puts some really dangerous crosses in. Whereas Braga can start to look disconnected from the rest of the team a bit when I see him when he's bad. Again, I'm not saying they're bad. I'm just meaning when he's not playing and he's struggling. Braga, he looks like he's not connected to anyone. He gets involved and a lot of things break down around him. Whereas with Kizridis, it's like more that Hearts aren't getting him into the game, but when they do, he's still able to get like a good ball in.
Yeah,
which maybe makes the difference in the two players.
It's exactly that. So Braga there'd be moments where it was like real promise, and then just one bad touch, runs down an alley, runs into a player, doesn't really connect with or combine with the other players. Right. There's I'm sure, like, I think McInnes said, I did. You're still quite far away in the press box, but Braga and Kizridis tried to combine in the first half, and it was just terrible. Lost the ball, and all I heard was it sounded like him shouting "used to," but I didn't hear the words either side of that. I don't think he was very happy, but yeah, I think you nailed it on the head. Kizridis is I think he's a moments player, and he's someone that I would keep on the pitch because he is capable of that. He's seen it there was a first half where he put in just a brilliant ball out of nowhere for Milne, and in the second half kind of cut back and had a shot deflected wide of the post, and he got subbed. He got replaced by Alan Forrest. So two things on this. When he got subbed, he kind of just stood there, was like, just like me. I don't know if you've seen Alan Forrest, like, me, are you sure? And then he took us like a slow trudge off. And then the second thing was I was on the train back from Aberdeen last week and got chatting to a few Hearts fans. One of the Hearts fans, he said, because when Alan Forrest came on, it just made me think of this Hearts fan. He said anytime Alan Forrest comes on, he just leaves the ground. Well, that's a bit harsh.
It's extreme.
Yeah,
what are you winning 5-0? Derby, 5-0 the Derby, and you want to enjoy the end of the game, but no, I have to leave because Alan Forrest has entered the field to play. Just before we finish, what a lovely bloody player, man.
Yeah.
And I was checking his age when you were there, and he's 25. I feel there's a move in him. He looks like because it's not just he's got a bit of end product, and I know he missed sort of the two biggest chances in this game. Although one of them was mainly just down to him making it happen, which is which is always like a really positive thing for a player to be able to do. But it's just he looks like a player that just all round helps you because he's quality and like his passing's really good. He can drift around players. He picks up pockets of space. He's intelligent, and he's like that perpetual motion where he sort of glides with the ball round, with ball carrying. It just looks like, in terms of not just in his output and attacking sense, but it looks like tactically you could use him really well. He's not a luxury player whatsoever. He's really such a good player to have, and I would love to have him at Hibs. And I would probably think with Motherwell right now, with the way he started, and like I said, with how involved he is in the game as a despite being like a sort of high quality sort of attacking player, you feel when you first see him, you might drift in and out of games, but he doesn't really do that too much. I think there's a pretty decent move in him. I could see him playing in a foreign league as well and having a right good time.
He looks like he could play in play in the front three in a wider role. He can play as like he did yesterday as like a narrow 10. He can play probably play as a single number 10 in 4-2-3-1. I think he could play off the side with a 4-4-2. But I do think that he probably suits a team that wants the ball. Yeah. Rather than that. I wouldn't put him in Dundee. Put him in the Dundee team away from home. That's for sure.
Wouldn't do that to anyone.
No. But yeah, he's a special. He looks like a special player. Out of all the players that Motherwell have either Askew's brought in or he's enhanced, he looks like the player. He's probably just on a different level.
Definitely. Yeah, I love him. I really like watching him. And it's like, obviously, and Saeed, who's obviously a really good player, but he's the opposite, where I feel like he is more fair weather, get in the game. Yeah. He's a proper, old-fashioned attacking wide player who does mental stuff. And he's really good to watch, but I imagine the manager doesn't trust him anywhere near to the level that he trusts Just.
I'm sure it was Lee Miller doing comms on Wednesday, Tuesday. He apparently said that Askew was trying to get a message on us, telling him to cut that shit out. So his two most notable moments from the week are like a kind of wee pirouetted or like a wee ballet dance in midair against Hibs, and then slapping Cammy Devlin after the game on Saturday.
We've got more work to do with you, but just you're ready to go.
There we go. Tony and I said, let's do 40 minutes. We've done over an hour. So Tony needs to go. So we will finish there. Thank you very much, everyone, for listening to the Tennis Scottish Football podcast. There will, of course, be a review of the 3 games from Sunday. That'll be out on Monday, I assume. And then there'll be plenty of content throughout the week, especially on patreon.com/tennis podcast. Don't think there's anything else for me to punt or to say. So thank you very much. Goodbye, and goodbye, Tony.
Cheers.